Welcome to Adventure to Noor, the life of Prophet Muhammad in Medina, a city of light. The life of Prophet Muhammad in Al-Madinah experienced the spiritual journey of the Prophet during his blessed years in Al-Madinah, from the Hijrah to the building of the Islamic society, the brotherhood between Muhajirun and Ansar, the call to peace, and the battles that shaped history. Walk through the streets of Medina, feel the serenity of Masjid and an-Nabawi, and discover the deep love between the Prophet and his people. Walk through the streets of Medina, feel the serenity of Masjid and an-Nabawi, and discover the deep love between the Prophet and his people. Subscribe for more Islamic stories, nasheeds, and Medina moments. Watch, reflect, share, be inspired. Don't forget to like this video. Share with your friends and family. Comment your favorite part of the series. Subscribe for more spiritual content and Medina series. Disclaimer: this video is created for educational and spiritual purposes only. All historical references are based on authentic Islamic sources. Visuals used are for illustrative purposes only and not meant to depict the Prophet Muhammad. May Allah forgive any shortcomings and guide us to what is right. The change of Qibla, a turning point in early Islam. Until that time, the Qibla, the direction faced by Muslims during prayer, had been Jerusalem. This choice initially aligned with the traditions of earlier prophets and was familiar to the Jewish tribes residing in Medina. However, some among the Jews misunderstood this alignment. They assumed that the Prophet Muhammad was inclined toward Judaism or even dependent on their guidance and religious validation. But Allah soon revealed a command that marked a major shift. The Qibla was to be changed from Jerusalem to the Kaaba in Mecca. This directive affirmed the distinct identity of the Muslim Ummah and re-established the Kaaba, built by Prophet Ibrahim, as the spiritual center of Islam. This significant moment is detailed in the first part of Juz 2 of the Quran, within Surah Al-Baqarah, where the verses address this Jewish controversy and clarify the divine wisdom behind the change. Early defensive strategy of the Prophet in Medina. After the Prophet Muhammad settled in Yathrib, later known as Al-Madinah, his first priority was the establishment of public worship and the foundation of a just Islamic state. While focused on peace and community building, he did not ignore the threat of Quraysh, who had vowed to eliminate Islam. About a year after Hijrah, the Prophet authorized small expeditions, either led by himself or other early Muslim emigrants from Mecca. These expeditions were not for warfare, but served mainly to observe and discourage tribal alliances with Quraysh, to train the Meccan Muslims, who had practiced 13 years of pacifism, in military readiness. Importantly, only the emigrants, Muhajirun, participated in these missions, not the helpers, Ansar, of Yathrib. According to Ibn Khaldun, this was because the divine permission to fight had come while the Ansar was still in Yathrib and had pledged allegiance to defend, not initiate battle. In one rare case, blood was shed and booty taken, but against the Prophet's direct command, emphasizing his commitment to restraint. These early movements paved the way for the Battle of Badr, where the site itself, marked by a well, became the stage of the first major battle in Islamic history. The Muslims in Medina knew that the caravan from Syria, laden with goods and wealth, would pass near their territory. The Prophet set out with around 300 men, lightly armed, more suitable for a raid than a full battle. Abu Sufyan, sensing the threat, changed the caravan's route and sent an urgent message to Quraysh, who dispatched a 1,000-man army to defend their honor and economic interests. The suggestion in Ibn Hisham and other sources is that the caravan was a pretext. The deeper purpose may have been to confront Quraysh militarily, especially after Allah's command to fight those who oppressed and expelled the Muslims. Quran 2, 190-193. At Tabuk, the Prophet openly declared his intentions. But at Badr, the strategy might have been deliberately ambiguous to maintain morale among the Sahaba, most of whom were unprepared for a large battle. The Quran itself, Surah Al-Anfal 8, 5-8, confirms that you, O Muhammad, wanted the unarmed one, the caravan, but Allah intended to establish the truth by His words and cut off the roots of the disbelievers. This verse supports the idea that Allah guided events beyond human planning, redirecting the Muslims from a simple raid to a decisive confrontation. While the immediate pretext was the caravan, the real objective, possibly known only to the Prophet and perhaps even then partially veiled, was divinely arranged to bring about the Battle of Badr, a turning point in Islamic history. It marked the first major victory of Islam, the fulfillment of divine command to fight oppressors, the beginning of a new balance of power in Arabia. Summary of the events surrounding the Battle of Badr and its aftermath. The Quraysh army had already advanced halfway toward Yathrib when the Prophet Muhammad set out with the Muslim force. All three key groups, the Quraysh army, the Muslim army, and the trade caravan led by Abu Sufyan, were converging near the water wells of Badr. Learning of the Muslim presence there, Abu Sufyan diverted his caravan toward the coast, avoiding the direct encounter. The Prophet, aware of the risks, offered the Ansar, the native Muslims of Yathrib, a chance to withdraw, since their original pledge did not oblige them to fight in open battle. However, the Ansar, deeply committed, refused to abandon him. Despite initial setbacks, the Muslims emerged victorious at Badr. This unexpected victory significantly raised the Prophet's status among Arab tribes. However, it also intensified the enmity between Quraysh and the Muslims, evolving from religious opposition to a blood feud. The Quran passages referencing Badr warned of larger conflicts to come. Indeed, in the following year, Quraysh sent an army of 3,000 to attack Yathrib. While the Prophet initially planned a defensive strategy, which Abdullah ibn Ubay, leader of the hypocrites, supported, many veterans of Badr, confident in divine support, insisted on taking the fight outside the city walls. Suryodaya, the Battle of Uhud, a lesson in obedience and perseverance. Suryodaya, the Prophet, honoring the zeal of his companions, marched with 1,000 men toward Mount Uhud to confront the Quraysh. However, Abdullah ibn Ubay, offended by the Prophet's decision, withdrew with a third of the army, weakening the Muslim ranks. Despite the odds, the Muslims were on the verge of victory, until a critical mistake changed the course of battle. A group of 50 archers, posted to guard a strategic pass, disobeyed the Prophet's command and abandoned their post, hoping to claim spoils. The enemy cavalry seized the opportunity, attacked from behind, and turned triumph into tragedy. The Prophet was wounded, and rumors spread that he had been killed. But when the truth emerged, that he was alive, the companions regrouped and protected him, retreating with heavy losses. The next day, to show strength and defiance, the Prophet led the remaining troops out once more. A friendly Bedouin misled Abu Sufyan, saying the Muslims were eager for revenge. Fooled by this, Abu Sufyan withdrew, and Medina was spared. Aftermath of the Battle of Uhud. The defeat at Mount Uhud diminished the Muslims, standing among Arab tribes and the Jews of Yathrib. Tribes that had previously leaned toward Islam now shifted their support to the Quraysh. As a result, Muslim followers became targets of violence, especially when traveling in small groups. One such follower, Khubayb, was captured by a desert tribe, sold to the Quraysh, and publicly tortured to death in Mecca. Jewish hostility and the expulsion of Banu Nadir. Summary. Despite having a treaty with the Muslims, some Jewish tribes in Yathrib began to show open hostility toward Islam. In an attempt to align with Quraysh, they even went so far as to claim that the pagan Arab religion was superior to Islam. As a result of their actions, the Prophet Muhammad was compelled to take punitive measures. The tribe of Banu Nadir was besieged in their fortified settlements, eventually subdued, and expelled from the city. Meanwhile, the hypocrites within the Muslim community had secretly supported the Jews and encouraged their defiance. Green and Yellow Leaf Battle of the Trench. Summary. 5th year of Hijrah. Green and Yellow Leaf. In the 5th year after Hijrah, a massive coalition of Quraysh and Ghatafan tribes, around 10,000 warriors, marched to destroy the Muslim community in Al-Madinah. This battle became known as the War of the Clans, Ghazwat al-Azab, or the Battle of the Trench, Ghazwat al-Khandak, because for the first time in Arab warfare, a trench was dug around the city to repel the attackers. Round pushpin. This innovative defense strategy was suggested by Salman the Persian, and the Prophet Muhammad personally joined in the digging. The trench proved an effective barrier, stopping the enemy cavalry. Frustrated, the enemy camped outside and resorted to archery. In a tense turn of events, the Jewish tribe of Banu Qurayza broke their treaty and sided with the enemy, creating a crisis from within. But Allah sent His help. A Muslim agent sowed distrust between the Quraysh and their allies. Then, a furious storm raged for 3 days, wrecking the enemy camp. With their morale shattered, the Quraysh withdrew overnight. Ghatafan followed suit. One, the siege was broken without full-scale battle, an immense victory for Islam. The aftermath of the Battle of the Trench and the fate of Banu Qurayza. Following the defeat of the allied Quraysh and Ghatafan forces in the Battle of the Trench, the Prophet Muhammad turned his attention to the tribe of Banu Qurayza. Despite having a treaty of alliance with the Muslims, Banu Qurayza had secretly negotiated with the enemy during the siege, committing a grave act of treachery. Upon the Muslim army's return to Medina, the Prophet ordered a siege of the Banu Qurayza's fortified quarters. The siege lasted nearly a month. Eventually, the tribe surrendered unconditionally but pleaded that judgment be passed by Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, a leader of the Aus tribe, with whom they had ties. Sa'd, invoking the laws known and accepted among the Jews themselves, decreed that the fighting men be executed, and the women and children be taken as captives. The judgment, though severe, was consistent with the consequences of treason during wartime in that era. The campaign against Banu al-Mustalik, 6a, in early 6a, intelligence reached the Prophet that the Banu al-Mustalik tribe was mobilizing for an attack against the Muslims. Preempting their plans, the Prophet swiftly gathered a force and led a campaign against them. The encounter resulted in a decisive Muslim victory. The tribe was taken by surprise, and many of them were captured. This expedition not only neutralized a threat but also brought new tribes under the fold of Islam, either through alliance or eventual conversion. Thanks for watch video. Please subscribe, like, share, comments.